Representative Horton, have a seat at the table, and Drew, if you'll read this in, please.
Mr. Chairman and members, House Bill number 199 provides relative to services for children with provided through the medical assistance program known as Medicaid, provides legislative findings relative to Medicaid waiver programs, establishes and provides for a demonstration waiver to serve children with disabilities, requires development and submission of an application to the federal Medicaid agency, provides for definitions and for related matters.
Okay, Representative Horton, I see you have some help at the table there with the Vice Chair.
Mr. Friend, support.
Okay. We have a bunch of green cards and a white one and no red ones, but go ahead, please.
Is there any questions?
Go ahead.
Okay. And unless someone doesn't know what TEFRA was, I certainly did not until I had a constituent come and speak to me on behalf of what she and her family are going through. They have private insurance that they've pretty much exhausted because they have a third child who's extremely handicapped, not supposed to live past the age of 2. She's 1 month past 2. And it's because they sold their home, downsized. They sold their second car. She quit work. And done everything that they can to set up a ICU in their home because most emergency rooms are not even equipped to help their daughter with everything that she has, and they cannot get. I think they're on a list possibly to try to get Medicaid as a secondary insurance to help with these type of things. But TEFRA, which was adopted in the federal law in 1981 by President Ronald Reagan, has provided a TEFRA-type state plan in order to help a limited amount of families. And it enables them to continue to work and to also keep their child home with them. And so I just thought it was time that our state joins. And again, Department of Health does their best to help these families, but I think we need a TEFRA state plan in order to help these people.
Members, TEFRA is funded in many states already. I know Representative Horton did a great job at explaining what it does, but basically it doesn't factor in the parent's income. If the kid is disabled and need assistance, you'll qualify for TEFRA, which is an extension of the Medicaid program. It will allow, I'll just use, for instance, a kid, well, I don't know, perfect example, but a kid that has disability to get resources that the private insurance probably wouldn't cover. Anytime they have medical conditions, the private insurance will be primary, Medicaid would be secondary. It does have a fiscal note, $8.4 million in state general funds. I'm well aware, I'm sure she's well aware that if we doesn't find the money, it won't get funded. But we're currently working in appropriations very hard and working with LDH to find the funding for this program. It's the right thing to do. There's too many stories we're hearing with families. The latest story I heard, it was a state trooper. His wife was working at a bank making about $20,000 a year. The kid, it was costing about $13,000 to pay for the in-home care a year. They had to factor in, do we pay the $13,000? Basically, the mom's only going to profit $7,000 before taxes for the year, and you had a stranger coming in your home every day to care for your kid. So what she did was she stopped working. So what did that cost? Now we have a non-tax-paying citizen who have to stay home and care for their kid because they don't have the resources with Medicaid dollars to help fund to care for them. I think the more we can take burdens off of the family and allow access to better health care, to good quality health care, to where the disabled kid can maximize their function and allow the parents to stay working so that they can keep paying taxes to the state of Louisiana. I personally just think this is the right thing to do, and we're going to work on the funding. If the fund is not there, we all know the bill's not going to make it through. But we're working hard with LDH, with appropriations, and I'm confident that we will get the money to fund this.
And if I may add that this is not a Medicaid for all. This would be, again, a secondary insurance for the most needy of our children. The criteria of these kids would have to be qualified to go into a facility full time. That's the amount of care that they need. So it's important that you know that and the only child that would receive these benefits is the severely disabled child in that home. And so I just appreciate your favorable passage.
We have a question from Representative Cox.
I move favorably.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Representative Cox.
We have a motion by Representative Cox. I do have some cards to read in, and we had some people who wanted to speak. They may or may not. They're welcome to Laureen Phillips for self, Tamia Claire for self, Rebecca Frugier for her son, Jennifer Coates for self, Kelly Luke for self. And then the President would provide information if requested. Stacy Darnell, Linda Spratt of the March of Dimes, Marion Edwards, Gabrielle Edwards, Cheney Gidry, I think it's Gidry, Katie Cochran, Kelly Monroe, Crystal Power, Annette Frugier, April Dunn, Melinda Elliott, Ashley McReynolds, Jamie Duchesne, Jessica Lewis, Susan East Nelson, Jean Aberday, Catherine Auber, and Karen Artis. All are in support. Yeah, it looks like it's a very good bill. We got a very good support. If you'd like to, would y'all like to say anything in closing? We do have a motion.
I just personally appreciate all of these.
Absolutely.
I think they would like to read
If you'd like to
a
speak
brief statement.
briefly,
into the
okay, come
record.
forward. You're welcome.
I would just like to say while waiting on them that LDH is doing a tremendous job of working on getting, well, they did do a tremendous job of working on getting rid of the waiver waiting list, and they continue to work hard to. Okay, I'm not sure. But they continue to work hard to fund programs like this, and all we're doing is letting them know that this is a priority, and just we're going to continue working with them.
Absolutely. Please identify yourself.
Good morning. My name is Rebecca. Good afternoon. I'm sorry. We've been here since 9. My name is Rebecca Frugier. I'm the mother of 3 children and reside in Lafayette, Louisiana. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you.
Absolutely.
I'm here to ask that you please support the implementation of the TEFRA Medicaid state plan option in Louisiana. In May of 2015, my son Jean was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Our world was rocked, to say the least. But not only were we faced with the news that he had this life-changing disability, we were unknowingly about to embark on the endless battle to get him the care and services that he needed. Upon diagnosis, we were placed on the waiver waiting list, and we were eager to get a waiver, as one of the benefits of receiving the waiver is being able to qualify for Medicaid. The emotional and physical stress that came with this diagnosis was already difficult enough, but topping it off with the tremendous financial burden has greatly affected our family. Our son receives 40 plus hours of therapy a week in order to gain the skills that he needs to make progress. These therapies come at a very high cost, and annually our $6,000 private insurance deductible is met before reaching the end of January. With having only private insurance, we have a max number of 35 occupational visits per year, and being that he receives 2 OT visits a week, we are up by the end of April. So that leaves us 8 months out of the year paying over $1,500 a year just for occupational therapy, which is only one of the 3 therapies that he receives. We also purchased an additional private insurance of $539 a month to cover the things that our first insurance didn't cover, and it still didn't cover everything we needed. Amid all of this, we've had to move our family 3 times in the last 5 years so that we could live closer to therapies that were in network with our private insurance. The emotional, physical, and psychological stress of this fight became so overwhelming that in 2017, during Thanksgiving week, I was hospitalized due to stress and anxiety. I spent 8 days in the hospital due to everything that had been put on my plate. After I was released from the hospital, I was told that I needed to quit working in order to take better care of myself and my family. So I ended a 15-year career in the finance industry due to this. Because of our situation, I have had to put my husband and other 2 children on the back burner, financially, physically, and emotionally. I'm sure this comes as no surprise to anyone in here, but I was once told that if my husband and I were to divorce, then our household income would drop and we could qualify for Medicaid. Also, if I would choose to institutionalize my son, then he would automatically get Medicaid. However, if I chose to care for him in his own home, we're left without. You may ask, why am I here? If we've recently just gotten a waiver. That's what I wanted to say. After the long wait, we finally got a waiver. And you might ask, why am I here if I have one? The answer is simple. I'm here to represent those families who were once us. Hopefully they won't have to suffer the extreme financial loss of physical and emotional stress as well that was placed upon my family for so many years. Caring for a child with significant disabilities will always take a toll on the caregiver, but eliminating the financial burden would make a huge impact for the better. So once again, I ask that you please support the implementing of the TEFRA Medicaid state plan option in Louisiana. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Good afternoon. My name is Kelly Luke, and I'm from Lafayette, Louisiana. I'm a mother of 3 children, 2 of which have special needs that require extra love and attention. I am here to ask that you support the implementation of the TEFRA Medicaid state option plan. My oldest son, Jace, is on the autism spectrum. He currently takes numerous medications daily and undergoes 10 to 13 hours of ABA therapy. He is in 6th grade at STEM Magnet Academy in Lafayette and is very intelligent, but he suffers greatly with anxiety and emotional instability. Each day of success takes a lot of work on his part, along with his teachers, counselors, and administration, working alongside of us, his parents, his doctors, and therapists. My youngest son is Adam. He has spina bifida. He also has stable, unshunted hydrocephalus, neurogenic bowel and bladder, and ADHD due to his abnormal brain anatomy. He sees several specialist physicians, undergoes regular monitoring and testing studies. He takes medication daily for his bladder and bowel. He receives weekly therapies and requires durable medical supplies such as orthotics, a wheelchair, bowel, bladder, incontinence supplies, and products. Jace was diagnosed with autism shortly following Adam's birth. Due to the numerous doctor and therapy appointments for both boys, I had to change employers, take a reduction in pay and hours. With this drop in income, the boys were scarcely eligible for secondary Medicaid coverage from about 2012 to 2018, which was an immense help. It afforded us the opportunity to provide Adam with additional physical and occupational therapies, pay for his bladder incontinence and bowel continence program products, and the expensive orthotics he uses daily to give him mobility independence. It also helped defer the high cost of pocket for Jace's psych medications and ABA therapy. Unfortunately, Medicaid coverage also gave us peace of mind with Adam because there's always the potential he would need major neurosurgery and lengthy hospital stays. Unfortunately, in May of 2018, we lost this secondary coverage, which was a huge blow to our family. When we lost Medicaid coverage, we had to discontinue Adam's occupational therapy as we couldn't imagine the cost of keeping them all. We made the difficult decision to keep his mobility strong with physical therapy. We began having to pay for his incontinence supplies, which is $500 to $800 a year. Nothing is covered by insurance. Cheaper brands were not sufficient, so, Jace is continuing his ABA therapy as we feel he definitely needs it, and the cost is something that is always weighing on our shoulders. His psychologist is out of network, and we have zero coverage on out of network. Therefore, we pay her out of pocket each visit. We've worked out a deal of $100 each visit. While our private insurance benefits are good, the out-of-pocket amounts add up quickly. Between both boys, the therapies easily add up to a couple of $1,000, and the medication adds up to about $1,200. Adam is a very active and growing boy and goes through bracing faster than most with spina bifida. If we wouldn't have worked out a marketing deal with the brace company for his likeness to be used in social media marketing, we would have paid up to $2,000 in this past year. He is also outgrowing his current wheelchair, and that portion for us will be estimated from $1,200 to $400, depending on our deductible. Our credit cards are currently close to being maxed out due to finances being strapped at times and bills that had to be paid in the past year. We have always said that from day one, we would never allow finances to come into our medical decisions in their care. But that doesn't mean that getting them the best doctors, the best therapies, and the best equipment doesn't get stressful. This part always gets me choked up, sorry. My daughter, who is 9 years old, in the middle of the boys, even feels the struggles. She sees what we have to sacrifice and do without to ensure that they get the care they need. We will continue to do what we do daily for our kids. We have no choice. They deserve the best to have a great life. And if that means exhausted, overworked, and stressed out parents, that's what it's going to take. It's unfortunate. But if you support implementation of TEFRA, so many families like mine would not have to get to that breaking point and be able to provide our children the best quality of care to continue their best quality of life. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Please identify yourself.
Tamara Crane. I want to let y'all know about my son Daniel. He is 17, has multiple disabilities, congenital myopathy, muscular dystrophy, autism, and was just recently diagnosed with scoliosis. I hold a full-time job as the executive director with the Bossier Council on Aging. And it does pay me above what the Medicaid threshold income limits are, but it does not offer insurance coverage for me or my son. When his father lost insurance coverage for about 8 months, he went without insurance during that whole time. I'm not going to quit my job just to get him qualified for Medicaid, but that is sometimes choices families make. This takes, as was pointed out, tax dollars back out of the system. I prayed every day and night that a medical emergency would not happen since he didn't have insurance. He even went without therapy for a time when I couldn't pay for it privately anymore. My mom would help sometimes pay for his medicines. We were very fortunate that his disabilities didn't require any intense medical treatment during those 8 months, and that was because of prayer. But it was still a very stressful time. Being a parent, you continuously worry about your child's health. When you are a parent of a child with a disability, that worry is then compounded by infinity. We shouldn't have to then add to the worry about not having medical insurance. TEFRA also even helps keep the care costs down, as Representative Horton mentioned. As a former nursing home administrator for over 15 years, the average annual cost in a nursing facility, as she was stating, was told possibly put her son in a facility, is over $60,000 out of Medicaid dollars. The cost for TEFRA from Medicaid is estimated to be much less. So when we're talking about how are we going to fund it, there's those options as well. I'm so glad to hear that y'all feel that the TEFRA plan has your support, so just help us figure out a way to fund it now.
Thank y'all very much. We did have an amendment, I think, Representative Horton, we overlooked. If you want to return to the table, and we'll quickly take a look at this amendment. Drew.
Mr. Chairman and members, the amendment before the committee is coded 1270-1270, is the code in the top right-hand corner. These have been distributed and are available online. It's a set of 13 amendments. They're printed front and back on the page, so set 1270. 13 amendments, they have just one function, and that is to delete all references to implementation of the TEFRA option through a Medicaid demonstration waiver and replace those references with provisions to implement the TEFRA option through a Medicaid state plan amendment. This concludes the extent of the amendments.
Anything about the amendments you want to speak of? I'll offer the amendments. Is there any objection to the amendments? Without objection, the amendments stand. And we still have a motion from Representative Cox. Representative Johnson, do you have a question? Okay. Representative Johnson. Please identify yourself, sir.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Mark Thomas, Louisiana Department of Health Deputy Secretary. For the department, this population of children and their families, they're very much a priority for us, as Representative Miller and Representative Horton have said. And first, I'd like to commend them for their advocacy on behalf of these individuals. We have worked very hard to address the needs of these kids and their families. One of the initiatives that we had on last year was the tiered waiver, the move from the previous way that we gave services to kids and their families, which was a first come, first serve basis, and we moved to a prioritized unmet need basis for appropriating and giving out those waiver opportunities. As the dear lady said earlier, we were very fortunate to reach many of these families. As a matter of fact, we gave out over the last year, the previous year and last year, almost 1,400 new waiver opportunities, with 65% of those opportunities going to families with children fitting this profile. And so we believe, as we look at this bill, this is a very similar bill that we had last year. And last year, the numbers were around 2,200 kids that were on that list. This year, it's down to 1,600. We were, as I mentioned earlier, in that process, we've been able to reach quite a few of these kids. We've been able to eliminate the waiting list, and we would just want to make it very clear that as a department, we're prioritizing reaching some of these kids and their families. We believe that the new tiered waiver without the waiting list, combined with the services that we have within our districts and authorities, we have our individual family support services that are state general fund services within our districts and authorities, and their target is for this population of individuals as well, to assure that families are able to stay together and to prevent institutionalization. As a matter of fact, Louisiana has one of the highest rated individual family support programs in the country, and that program was developed with many of the advocates that are here today, as well as the advocacy organizations. The only other thing I'd like to say is Representative Miller has aptly said that right now we have not identified funding for this initiative yet, and we are also trying to identify funding for our ICFDD rebates, as well as the rate restoration for our HCBS setting. And as a department, as we continue to work with these families, we've also made that a priority as well. And we believe that there's a large population of families that have children with intellectual developmental disabilities, the aging. We're talking over 17,000 people that receive waivers, over 60,000 direct support workers, and over 700 providers would be positively impacted with that initiative. So we do have multiple initiatives that we are seeking funding, and this is one, but we will continue, as Representative Miller and Representative Horton has said, we will continue to work very closely with them as well as our families to identify those families that fit this profile and assist them with meeting that need.
Thank you, sir.
Well, one of the things that I want to, I guess, ask this question of everybody at the table, I don't want to pass this bill out of here as some kind of hollow victory. I want to make sure that when we pass this bill that we have identified some way of funding it. And I mean, this is very important to me and very dear to my heart. And when I see bills to roll back those tax credits, Ms. Horton, it concerns me. You know, the taxes that we passed last year. I mean, you know, not tax credits, but rather the sales tax that we voted on. You know, where are we going to get this money from? And I mean, the department, and I think what you're testifying, the undersecretary is testifying, is not just the cost of this program, but the cost of other programs y'all need. Apparently, y'all don't have the money to fund this one. Is that what you're testifying to?
Mark Thomas, again, Deputy Secretary.
Deputy Secretary.
We have not identified, and as Representative Miller said previously, he'll work with us, but we have not identified the funding for this initiative. And we also have another priority, as I'm certain many, and even some of the folks that are here have met with you folks about as well, the priority of increasing the rates for the rate rebasing for our ICFDDs, but for these folks, more importantly, our HCBS settings. That's for the aging as well as intellectual and developmental disability folks who are receiving home and community-based services. So those are the two for our disability, for our HCBS settings. Those are the two priorities for us.
And has that been funded in y'all's budget so far before appropriations?
To date, not yet.
Not yet.
Can I address your
Please,
statement to me,
please.
since it was a statement?
I'm concerned.
when Dr. Gee so graciously attended one of our meetings with Representative Steve Carter about tax, to fixing our budget or tax code, tax reform, excuse me.
Right.
I asked her what the budget was currently for Department of Health, and she told me $18.7 billion. $18.7 billion. And I feel that working through appropriations and with the department, because they are really good people and really work hard, that we will be able to secure the funds.
But where?
I guess we'll find out when we go to appropriations.
Well, no, but I want to know what you plan on cutting to be able to, because I mean, right now, I mean, wouldn't, Mr. Undersecretary, I mean, you're telling me that y'all don't have the funds to do this or those other priorities that you listed, correct?
So to date, we have not identified the dollars that would pay for the $9 million state general fund dollars needed for the TEFRA program, but also we need approximately $38 million to fund the ICFDD rebasing, as well as the rate restoration for our home and community-based services for the aging as well as developmentally disabled. So we have not identified those dollars.
So what's the total amount of dollars that you need to identify to set those priorities right now that you're lacking?
For both of these, somewhere in the neighborhood of $46 million.
$46 million? Mm-hmm. And you have not identified where you can get those funds?
To date, no, sir.
Are there any recommendations?
Representative Johnson, if I can answer. On appropriations, we're working hard to identify this money. So if you have a budget, $18 billion, at some point, us as legislators have to really look at this budget and say where we want it spent. So, for instance, right now we have a new program with an incentive quality program. $400 million worth of federal dollars is coming back to increase quality care in the state of Louisiana for our Medicaid recipients. We really believe that we can tap into some of that money and put into this program. We may not, we don't know yet, but we think we can. We're searching for the money. I'm confident we're going to find it. So remember, as we look at this big budget and we say what we don't have the money for, us as legislators have some say-so on how we need to now start spending our money and get creative. Because up till today, we continue to let the hospitals draw more and more federal dollars down, which I support. But at some point, we have to understand that we need to keep disabled individuals out of the hospital. So we have to start funding on the ground. We have to start funding, increase funding for the in-home services. We have to keep these parents working and maximize the functionality of the disabled individuals. They are working closely with us. But we as legislators, and I just realized, to be honest with you, have to stop saying we don't have the money. We can work with DHH in their budget and possibly find it, and I think we will.
I'm not saying we don't have the money. What I'm trying to say is when the department's saying they haven't identified, I'm just trying to figure out, are we identifying a cut? Or are we identifying, I want to know if we're going to cut, where we're cutting from. Because what I don't want to see is us cut from another vulnerable constituency to help another vulnerable constituency, and then at the same time we're rolling something back.
I'm hoping the hospitals are going to graciously say, hey, we're going to get an extra $400 million. We'll give you this $39 million back. That's my dream. I don't know if it's going to work, but it might.
Well, and then again, the question is, and I guess this is a question for the Undersecretary, can we use that funding if that were to happen?
I would, on yesterday, there were discussions with Representative Miller and our Undersecretary and our legal, and so those conversations, there was a commitment from the department that we would explore if there are alternative ways of utilizing those dollars. I cannot say so at this time.
Okay. Because I just want to make sure that we have identified, I want to see this bill pass, and I want to see it funded, though. I don't want to see a hollow victory. I really want to see if we do something, that we do something that really means something to the individuals that are here today.
Yeah.
I don't want to see us do something and it not mean something to you. I want to see it really mean something to you.
We're going to all work together, Representative Johnson, and we're going to find the funding.
I think we all agree, Representative Johnson. In fact, we'll take co-authors on this particular bill, and maybe that'll help someone in its own right. So with that said, we have a motion to report this House Bill 109 with amendments favorably. Is there any objection? Without objection, we'll report favorably. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
House Bill 199, Representative Horton, relative to services for children provided through the medical assistance program known as Medicaid. Representative Pierre, on behalf of the Legislative Bureau, sends up technical amendments.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the technical amendments? Without objection, the amendments are adopted. Representative Horton, on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I bring what we call the TEFRA bill to you today on behalf of the many families who have severely disabled children. So they're so severely disabled that they qualify to go into an institution. These families do not qualify for Medicaid, but with TEFRA, their income level will not be used against them. Medicaid would be used as a secondary insurance just to give them relief. Most of these people have sold their home and downsized. They've done everything they can to be able to keep their child at home with them. The wife quit her job so the husband can work. Sometimes he works 2 jobs. But these families need help. In 1981, President Ronald Reagan initiated TEFRA, and it would only be used for the child that has the severe disability. These families need you. They're desperate for this law to be enacted, this state program. I thank the Department of Health for working with us on this. Dustin Miller is my equal co-author on this, and we've worked hard. Our people, your people, are told by the department all that they can do is either get a divorce or move to Texas to get the benefits they need just to be able to provide for their child and keep their child at home. And I really would thank you for your favorable vote on this. It would, again, Medicaid would only be used for the severest of cases as a secondary insurance for when the people desperately need this help. I appreciate your favorable passage.
There are no questions. Let's go ahead with the amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Just to try to do fee for service instead of manage Medicare, unless it's
There's an amendment to it.
and to try to make them maximize the health insurance premium payment.
Representative Dustin Miller has an amendment, Mr. Speaker, 2956.
To keep them on private insurance.
Representative Miller, on your amendment.
Members, my amendment does 2 things. It just tells the Department of Health to try to use fee-for-service option unless managed care would be cheaper, because I think we can do this for fee-for-service option for a lot cheaper. Also, second part of the amendment just says to the maximum extent practicable to for the TEFRA option beneficiaries in its health insurance premium payment program as a means of maximizing private insurance health coverage. All that does is DHH offers to pay for the premium for some low-income individuals to help them stay on private insurance. So it just says to the maximum possibility to offer this so that they can stay on private insurance as well. I'll take any questions.
There are no questions on the amendment. Is there any objection to the adoption of the amendment? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. For a question on the bill, Representative James.
Yes, sir.
I couldn't hear you going through it. So you said the income wouldn't be held against the families?
Correct.
So do you consider is this an expansion of the Medicaid program?
No, I don't.
So what do you
Because
consider?
they maintain their private insurance, and there's not a lot of people who would even qualify for this service. I think the Department of Health, they tell us 1,200 to 14 could even apply, and it goes
1,200 to 1,400?
1,200 to 1,400 could apply because they have one child that's that severely disabled. These people have applied. They just need some help to be able to keep their child at home. They've exhausted their private insurance, and they're trying to stay afloat. They want to keep their families together.
But but there's no income requirement. So we'll be allowing the Medicaid program to be used for families that, and we don't know the income. This could be a family with annual income of $500,000, and they can still use the Medicaid program.
Well, if a lot of times, I don't know what people's income, their income would not be held against them. I don't know about you, but I've never had a millionaire come to my office and ask for assistance. But
I get a lot of millionaires that call and ask for assistance in ways and means, but not, this is the first time we expanded the Medicaid program, and we're taking away the income requirement. And I feel sorry for those families, but This will potentially open up the Medicaid program for another 1,200 families, and we're not even gonna look at their income.
Well, it's a very limited amount. All of our surrounding states do it. It'd be like my husband and I having, we were your age, having a child that we have 2 daughters, having a 3rd daughter that's so severely disabled that I would have to quit my job. He is a retired fireman, already worked 1 extra job. He'd have to take another one. We'd have to sell our home and property and downsize to probably a smaller home, go with 1 car, exhaust every bit of our insurance, and just need some type of service to around secondary insurance to help us. They're tax-paying citizens, and they only would ask this and only qualify in the severest of cases. And again, I think that I think that we owe them to do this. I don't see it as expansion of Medicaid. There are states that have TEFRA that's never expanded their Medicaid.
Well, I mean, I don't know how we don't see it as an expansion if you're telling me that this could apply to 1,200 people. So if it's 1,200 more people, I don't know how we don't label that an expansion.
Well, you can label it anything you want, but Representative James, this is only for the child. The only child in the family that has this. It's not for all the kids because one has this. It's only for that one child when they can no longer make it, and they don't want to get a divorce to have to get that secondary insurance, or they don't want to move to Texas. I mean, this could be you, it could be my kids, anybody that works and wants to keep. They could all go ahead and put their kids in homes. They could put them in nursing homes. But they don't want to do that. These children's lives are very limited. And again, I don't know, not because 1,200 children qualify doesn't mean they all will come and ask
I understand that. And will those parents, will they fall under the guidelines? So now they'll have to submit their tax information to.
I don't think any of them have a problem doing that.
So,
because under TEFRA rule, it's just like CMS rule, to where you had to the federal law that states how a child has to be tested to see, how severely they are. It's the federal guidelines of how severe the child is disabled to be able to go into a nursing home. It's those same stringent guidelines, and those children are the extreme of the extreme.
And in the families, so these families, they have to submit documentation to show that they've exhausted their primary insurance. There's a level of transparency with the department. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. I would expect that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Representative Miller is a co-author?
Yes.
Okay.
You can too.
No, thank you.
Come on, Hollywood.
Thank you, Representative Horton.
Thank you. It is, members. It's very limited. Trust me, these families don't want to have any help.
For a question, Representative Morcell.
Thank you. Representative Horton, you said that this is only going to affect 1,200 to 1,400 families. Where did you get those numbers from?
I believe I got it from the Department of Health.
Department of Health?
Yes, ma'am.
These are cases where the children are one child is severely disabled?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
So severe that they qualify to go into a nursing home.
That they qualify to go into a nursing home. So
yes, ma'am.
that's one of the requirements, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I certainly feel for any family who has to go through that, but help me with TEFRA because I'm not that familiar with it. Is it anything like the waivers that we've been trying to get money in that pot?
Well, this would be a state program. This would not be a waiver program. Most states, including Arkansas, Georgia, Mississippi, Texas, they have a state plan program. So,
would you agree that the parents, the people who apply for waivers are in a similar situation and we don't have enough money in those pots? Would you agree to that?
Well, I know we have the money in the pots now.
We have enough money to take every person off of the waiting list for waivers?
That's what I've been told. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Excuse me, Dustin, is that not true? That we don't have a waiting list for our waivers anymore?
I'm constantly getting calls in my office that there's not enough money for the waivers. So we got that money now?
We eliminated the waiver list, thank God.
Okay.
I get those same calls, but it's fully funded to my knowledge.
So you would support poor families that are trying to get services for Medicaid?
I support anyone who qualifies for Medicaid, regardless of what their income is.
Regardless of their income.
Yeah. If they qualify, they in that income level, of course I do.
Well, there's already a guideline, an income guideline, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't there already a guideline for Medicaid? So you're saying anyone though. So
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
I apologize, Representative Marcel.
There's already a guideline for Medicaid recipients.
Correct.
Am I correct?
Correct.
So what your bill does is specific for people who are outside of that guideline.
Yes, ma'am.
The financial guideline, right?
Yes, yes.
To help support them only if their child qualifies to be placed in a nursing home.
Or institution, yes,
Or
ma'am.
institution, so
Yes.
that they can keep them at home. Is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
correct?
Correct. Very limited.
And you don't see that as expansion of Medicaid?
No, I don't. I really don't mind.
Anything, did you know that anything that increases the money that we're spending is an expansion? And I'm not necessarily against it. I'm just trying to make sure I know where you are.
Well, it would be a program that expands on the Medicaid dollars. I agree with you on that.
So it would be a Medicaid expansion.
Yeah, and to people who pay for it. These are all tax-paying citizens who just need a little help.
Right. Wouldn't you agree that all of us who pay taxes pay for it?
100%.
So it's not just these people that pay for it. Am I correct?
I didn't mean that they were, but they do pay.
Okay. You said these people that pay
They do.
for it.
We're talking about TEFRA.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much,
No,
Representative
thank you for
Hart.
your questions. I appreciate
ma'am.
you, Representative Marcel.
For a question, Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Horton, you know that presently LDH is under fire from members of our committee and from the auditor on looking at individuals who are over $100,000. So does it put these individuals in the same bag, I guess, or a pot to be investigated by the legislative auditor, since we know that they're making more money than what is in the level for Medicaid?
I would expect these families to be under the same scrutiny anyone was.
Okay, so you don't have a problem with that. They don't have a problem with that.
No, I wouldn't think so. They're desperate.
What are the age levels of these individuals that are in this position?
I believe it's from. They can't be over 18, but they start as early as 6 months.
So if that's the case, then tell me why, or was it a choice that these individuals did not put their children into the SSD program, where we have the severely disabled children going to school?
I don't know about that. I can't answer that, Ms. Smith.
Well, I mean, it's
Representative
interesting
Smith.
that you're saying that they are very much disabled.
They are.
And the children who are at SSD fall into that very same category. But they're also we're in a school-based program that is now being taken over by LDH. So is this a choice that parents made to keep their children at home to take care of them? As a choice they made?
Well, being able to keep them at home is imperative to them, so they can be with them and love on them. And this one particular family that I met and talked to, they have like almost an ICU set up in their home because not all emergency rooms can even take care of their child. She wasn't supposed to live past 2, but because they went through all their savings to set up a place where she could be taken care of. She's now a little over 2 years old, but she can't even go to pediatric daycare. Is that what you mean?
No, this is SSD. It's the school that was in Alexandria that takes care of severely disabled children.
Yes.
And there are other facilities that are as well around the state that do the very same thing, and they are funded specifically by Medicaid.
True.
So I'm wondering why these individual children who are of school age were not involved in that program, because it just seems to me that the families made a choice to keep them at home because they could afford to.
Well, I know, Ms. Representative Smith, however these people are coping with their children that are so severely disabled, they may already send them to some schools like that. I just know that this would help them with some copays or with some things that their private insurance doesn't cover. And they've exhausted everything they can do, and this is something that other states are able to do, and I think Louisiana should too.
Well, I would be interested in knowing, though, why there is that difference between these individuals having their severely disabled children who could have been in school at the time. It's not going, like I said, it's now going under LDH based on the bill that we passed this session that is going to move that program from under the Department of Education to the Department of Health. And it's totally supported by Medicaid. So it would just seem to me that parents made a choice to keep their children at home because they take care of some of the same kind of individuals who could be in nursing homes as well, and now they're able to take care of them until they're 32 years old.
Well, with TEFRA, if you elect to approve this, then maybe Medicaid could help them pay for that. And I'm not saying they don't. Some of these families don't take their children to a school. I don't know what they do.
But they probably can't, if they're severely disabled, they're not taking them to school. These children are housed at the school.
Oh, no, you're talking about like we used to have Northwest State School in Bossier City.
I'm not familiar with that one.
It's Arc of Acadiana. But that's the point. They don't want to. They want to.
That's what I said.
Want their children with them.
They made a choice to keep their children at home so they could afford to do that at their home.
Well, they're doing. They would need help for Medicaid to be a secondary insurance either way, ma'am. But
I appreciate the conversation, but understand where I'm coming from. That they made a choice. Okay.
Sure, we all do.
For a question, Representative Arms.
Thank you.
I think what we got it kind of confused a little bit, Representative Horton. I'm not for sure, but I know back, and if you were here the other day, I was discussing my daughter. She's the same way. So about 20 years ago, it's been that long ago, they didn't have a waiting list back then, and I think there was 3 other children that could go into the school up in Alexandria. And we were lucky enough to be one of the parents that our child went there. But soon after that, then it had a backlog of families that you're talking about. They couldn't go to a group home because they required too much medical help. So that's where, in about that time, we started closing down the schools. I don't know if you remember that, but that was back in, even starting before Jindal, but when Jindal got elected in 2008, we closed down the one over in Pineville that did that.
Yes.
And then they started going to the now waivers.
Yes.
The thing that worries me, and I want to see every parent that has children like that have a school for their children to go to. Did the Department of Hospitals say where they would put the schools and how they would staff it and how they would pay for it?
Well, I really haven't talked to them about schools. TEFRA is simply allowing Medicaid to be like a secondary insurance to help with medications, copays, with things that their private insurance has been exhausted for doing. I mean, it would be like a wraparound insurance.
So in other words, then what we're looking for is for Medicaid just to be a supplement.
Yes, sir. Perfect word.
So they won't be going to a special school like Alexander Special Ed Center.
Well, I don't know if they need TEFRA to be able to do that. I'm not sure. But these are people whose income prevents them from getting the extra help that they need. And you know, like I said, other states have done this, and it's worthy to me.
Okay, I understand.
I understand what you're saying, and
and look, I'm for 100%.
I appreciate your support.
But let me just tell you one other thing. If the governor hadn't did the Medicare expansion, we wouldn't even have the money to even be talking about this right now. So I just want to let you know that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Arms. For the floor, Speaker Pro Tem Leger. All right, we'll come back to the Speaker Pro Tem. For the floor, Representative Dustin Miller.
Members, I rise in support of this bill. This is a working class, pro-life, secondary insurance bill. That's what this bill does. It's TEFRA. It lets an individual that is institutional level, disabled, family get TEFRA. That will be a secondary insurance. It will help parents continue to work instead of one parent having to stop working and stay home to care for their kid because they can't afford to hire someone year-round. Some private insurance do not pay for certain pre-existing conditions. There are some individuals who can't even get into pediatric daycares in different places because they don't have Medicaid. So I personally think the state is gonna make money behind this bill because individuals' parents are gonna be able to work and pay their fair share of taxes instead of staying home. One story that really got to me was a state trooper. He said his wife was working in the bank. She was making like $20,000 a year. When they averaged out actually paying someone around the clock to take care of their kid that was going to be around $15,000 a year, she said she needed to just stay home and take care of her child. This bill will allow them to get access to care at home where both parents can continue to work. I rise in support, and I hope the favorable passage. We do have $5 million that in HB 1 that passed this body as well. Thank you.
Mr. Henry, do you have a question for Representative Miller?
Yeah, just real quickly, Representative Miller, we both obviously sit on House on Appropriations Committee, and we work together to make sure the funding for this bill is in House Bill 105 as of right now. So this is funded, correct, at $5 million?
It is funded at $5 million. Yes,
gotcha.
Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Representative Jackson, you have a question for Representative Miller?
I don't have my computer with me, but I believe if I didn't, I should have co-authored this bill because it's a wonderful piece of legislation. Did you know?
Thank you, Representative.
But what it generally shows me as I look throughout my district, your district, and other districts is that one size doesn't fit all.
I agree.
And there comes a time when constituents, based on nothing they've done, but their family circumstances and their God-given limitations that are really not limitations, we may see them that way, but that they need help and we should reach out a helping hand.
I agree, and allowing them to have this TEFRA option, a lot of the kids, like the ones that are autistic, that's institutional level, they get access to services that can actually help them learn the trades to be able to function at maximum capacity. And that individual may one day be able to work.
And put their parents back to work.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
And I'm going to end with this. I remember when we were debating Medicaid expansion. Did you know a young lady came to committee, and the bill failed, but she talked about how she had spent all of her savings because she had been laid off, and she had spent all of her retirement savings on health care. And that because of that, her brother had gotten sick as well, and she was at home taking care of him, and he no longer qualified for much needed services. And so what we saw in that story, did you know, is that two people that could, well, one that could have been gainfully employed had her brother received the services he needed, couldn't go back to work. And so then she had spent her life savings taking care of him and her, and now she was on Medicaid, she was on SNAP benefits, because what I'm saying, did you know, is there's a perpetual, never-ending effect when we don't take care of our own, did you know?
I understand, and I don't think we should judge a disabled institutional level individual on their parents' income.
Right, and so the bottom line is this, Mr. Miller, Representative Miller, I'm going to end with this. I don't see in this note a cost savings to the state. But I really believe had they looked a little deeper, did you know, there would have been a major cost savings because we would have been putting parents back to work. We would have been taking people off of other state benefits that they really didn't want to be on. And that's what's real clear about this bill. We're helping parents return to work while taking care of their children. And I commend you and Representative Harden and others who understand the concept of sometimes people need a hand up and not a handout.
Thank you, Representative. I also would like to point out the fiscal note was based on a managed care organization price. If we do fee for service, I think some of these individuals may not even use the service. So it will cost the state zero on the ones who don't use the service.
Right, but I think also what they didn't consider was the parents who be back at work no longer receiving other benefits.
I agree.
And that's real, and it's a realistic thing when you have to stay at home and somebody has to quit their job so that you can be eligible for benefits that you should really help with anyway. So I really commend you guys for this, and I join and stand with you on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Jackson. Representative James for a question.
Thank you, Representative Miller. You weren't here when we had all those Medicaid expansion discussions. And when were you elected?
4 years ago.
4 years ago. So you missed all of the debates when we couldn't get Medicaid expansion passed off this floor, when we were trying to help people who couldn't afford insurance. And this is not picking and choosing. But when we tried to pass Medicaid expansion off this floor, it never could happen. And the only reason why it's a part of the law now is because we had a governor that had the common sense, the wherewithal, the courage to do the right thing, because we were sending tax dollars all over the country that were going to other states that decided to expand Medicaid, did you know? So now a body that wouldn't expand Medicaid and try to fight the program every single day, now we're going to expand Medicaid to people and expand the program to people that can afford it. So I want you to understand that this isn't about those fragile young people that you're talking about. It's more of a principle thing. And now for a program that so many people don't want to get rid of, and now we're expanding it to people that aren't in the group of people that Medicaid expansion should cover, those families.
Representative James, me and you are good friends, and I both agree.
We're going to
with
remain
you.
good friends.
I agree with you about where the position the majority of this body have taken many of times, but I personally put aside personal politics on this one, and I thought about the disabled kid who needed the care. So Republican or Democratic Party, it didn't matter to me to come stand up here today.
Well, I appreciate you, and I wish we had more people that would do that and take away those politics, because it's strange that we have a program that doesn't get support, but we want to take those dollars to support families that can afford, but we don't want to have the program, and we want to raid their tax records. We want to make sure they sign all these documents for the people that the program is intended to benefit. So hopefully your bipartisan spirit can morph over into my two friends that are sitting here picking on me while I'm trying to ask questions. Thank you, Representative Miller.
Members, this is our first bill of the day. Representative Norton for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker. I guess I'm just trying to get a clear understanding here where we are, where we're going, and where we just came from. The 1,200 people that will be allowed to be on Medicaid, tell me how is that going to affect anyone else that's trying to sign up to be on Medicaid, or how's it going to affect people who are not on it and would like to be on it? Tell me how's it going to be.
It shouldn't affect them at all, Representative Norton. This is a separate program that the federal government have in place, and we think the Medicaid rate right now is, I think, if you're 130% poverty level, but you have to realize if these individuals are paying, I'm just going to use a number, $30,000 worth of medical insurance or in-home care a year, and that individual makes $50,000 a year. Now you've shrunk their income to 20. To me, that's a low-income individual, working class person that this is going to cover.
Is there a policy in place now where it says that you can only make a certain amount of money before you can receive Medicaid? Is there a
Medicaid,
policy?
Yes. For Medicaid services, yes.
Okay, well, these are some of the Medicaid funds that we're talking about now. Am I correct?
This is a separate federal government program that they have in place that if a kid is disabled and is institutional level required for services, then their parents' income won't be judged for that kid, just the kid, the disabled kid, to get the TEFRA insurance.
Is this for all disabled kids, or just for certain disabled kids?
Just certain ones, if they institutional level requirements, ones who can't be left alone. So it's not all disabled kids.
Okay, because I too am concerned about what one of my colleagues made reference to, the fact of how we fought for Medicaid and how we fought for affordable health care extension, and what a struggle it was to get it here in the state of Louisiana. And when I think about, there is a new program, and this new program, is this a program that has been in existence for how long? This new program?
I'm not sure how long the federal government had it in existence. If I had to guess, I would tell you 10 to 20 years. I'm not sure. But no, when did the president? 1981. I'm sorry.
19, and we're just finding out about it.
No, we just have two legislators who've decided to push to make it a law in Louisiana.
Well, if we're going to make sure that it is a program that is for all parents who have children who are, should I say, ill in the way that we're talking about coming up under Medicaid, how can we get information out to let everyone know that now is a great time for you to sign up for this program? Because if it's only going to be for those who make a large amount of money and for those who only make $5 or $7 for minimum wages, and they don't know that this is what the state is doing, I'm a little bit concerned, because I know there's probably people in my area who probably would need to be a part of this program. But when I think about, when I think about the struggle and the fight that we did prior to the governor accepting the affordable health care, we were suffering. We were giving money, allowing money to go to other states. Did you know? And now today we find ourselves back fighting for 1,200 people. I don't want to see just 1,200 people that we're fighting for. I want to see all of the people of the state of Louisiana who can qualify to be in this program if we're going to push this, so that way everyone would have a fair chance.
If it passed, I'm sure the advocacy groups, and we have some here, and they have them all over the state, that's going to definitely go into your district and let every person who possibly qualifies for this, make them full aware of it.
I'm just saying, it's amazing how 3 years ago we were fighting not to have it, not to do it, and today we're fighting for it, but we're talking about a number of 1,200. And I just think that if we're going to do something for some of the people in the state here, did you know, I think we should do it for all people. Thank you.
I think me and you agree.
Thank you. Representative Stefanski for the floor.
Members, I'll be brief. This is a great bill. I'd ask you to please support it. I grew up with a little autistic brother, and this is something that was constantly in my family's conversation. I would ask you to support this bill. I think this is something that's great for the state of Louisiana and would benefit a lot of families. Thank you.
Representative Norton, to close on your bill. Excuse me, Representative Horton. Excuse me. I'm so sorry, Dodie.
You hear that, Representative Norton? Members, I thank you for, he called me Representative Norton to close. I just want to tell you that. But I thank you, members. This is I feel a necessary and sad bill to have to pass, a program to have to implement. These parents don't want to have this, but to apply for Medicaid to be a secondary insurance. They much rather not ask for help at all. So I thank you for your consideration and for your support of TEFRA. I think it's time that Louisiana joined a lot of other states and help working families be able to keep their children at home, and that's where they truly need to be. Thank you for your debate, for your questions and your statements. I respect each and every one, and thank you for your vote.
Representative Dodie Horton moves for final passage of the bill. As many of you that are in favor of the final passage will vote yes. Those opposed, please vote no. Mr. Clerk, if you'll please open the machine. Members, please vote your machines. Representative Wright, yes. Representative Moss, yes. Representative Ivy, yes. Vote your machine, members. Representative Gwynn, yes. Representative Talbot, yes. Representative Gary Carter, yes. Representative Magnaris, yes. Representative Leopold, yes. Members, have you finished voting? Mr. Clerk, please close the machine. 98 yeas and no nays. The bill is finally passed. Representative Horton. I'm sorry, Dodie. Representative Horton moves to reconsider the vote by which the bill finally passed. Lay that motion on the table. Without objection, so ordered. Mr. Clerk, please open the machine for co-authors. Members, this is for co-author in the bill. Have you voted your machines? Mr. Clerk, please close the machine. 44 co-authors.
Welcome, and once again, members, we are going to hear HB 199.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and committee, for hearing this bill. It's important to so many people, and I want to thank the Department of Health for working diligently with us and supporting this bill for this special community. TEFRA is just people who have insurance and don't qualify for anything else when they have those who have families who have a child that's so disabled that they qualify to go into a home. And so they desperately need some type of Medicaid program that's like a wraparound insurance to supplement theirs when they can no longer make ends meet. Most of these families have one of the parents who quit the job, they've downsized their home, they've used all their savings and would never come to us for help if they weren't desperate. So I thank you for hearing the bill, and I have with me Catherine Smitherman, who inspired me to file this bill, and I'm thankful for Dustin Hoffman, who God led me to. So
Hoffman.
I'm sorry, Dustin Miller. I don't know why. I guess I'm used to that committee. Dustin Miller, God did lead me to him, so he is a game changer.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Catherine Smitherman. I assisted Representative Horton in drafting this and getting this to you this morning. And I know that you have all probably heard testimony before from the disabled community and parents. I think that it is critical that this committee understand not only what our life looks like and why this is needed, but also why TEFRA specifically is the state answer to this problem that's plaguing so many of us. So I'll use my daughter, May, is our third child, and she was born with an incurable form, brain malformation. She is completely disabled, and we care for her in our home. She is now 6 months past her life expectancy, and we've gotten her there because we are able, with her medical team and advances in technology, to essentially run an ICU out of our home. To give you an idea, and this surprised me and would surprise many of you, if May is sick, our local hospitals won't admit her to the pediatric floor. She is so acute. They are not equipped to deal with her. She is an ICU-only baby. So the cost of running an ICU out of your home is staggering. We need good amount of skilled nursing services for sterile procedures to take labs and instill medicines into her bladder. We have very high out-of-pocket expenses for her co-pays for specialized medicines. We don't have coverage for many things like home modifications and extra therapies, and those are all common things that these TEFRA families deal with when we talk about the out-of-pocket expenses above and beyond insurance that maybe are not covered or only partially covered by very expensive insurance policies. I can give you an example of last year. We had $75,000 about in itemized out-of-pocket expenses on our federal tax return. Most families cannot afford that. We are only 2 years into that, and I don't know what we're going to do, and I know that there are families who are faced with losing their homes. You see in the news they are often advised to divorce or quit a job to qualify for Medicaid. And all of that costs the state more than implementing TEFRA, which would make Medicaid a supplemental payor of last resort. We have a fiscal note on this bill that shows how much it would save the state money by alleviating this specific population from the NOW and the Children's Choice waivers, which cost the state a lot more money.
Exactly, and I will tell you that if anybody's new to the audience here, to the person, this committee has always supported the waiver program and our developmentally disabled. And I will tell you that with this bill, y'all have done y'all homework. We have only cards of support
Praise God.
We've got no opposition whatsoever. The board is clear. We want to be very respectful if anybody came from out of town, but I will tell you that unless Representative Miller, you want to put something new into testimony, it's your
Members,
call.
I mean, I'll be brief. I think this is a working class bill. I mean, it allows, there's a lot of individuals that I've spoken to who wives had to give up their jobs
Exactly.
because it was more cost effective and better for the kid, for the wife to stay home, because it was going to cost the family $30,000, $20,000 a year to pay for at-home expenses. If we can allow both parents to keep working, I think we're going to make the money back on taxes, et cetera.
We're all on the same page,
Yeah,
y'all.
so
We
we
really-
worked with the department. The department had questions, as you see the amendment.
And why don't we put the amendment in the right posture, y'all? The amendment must have come from the department waiting for CMS approval, right? I mean, that's what the amendment does. You want to make sure that CMS blesses it, but you want to put that caveat in the bill.
And to ensure that it is implemented on or before June 1st, 2020.
Okay.
The House initially had $5 million in the budget that we sent over that the Senate took off. But after talking to LDH, it's going to take them months to get this program established and framed. So putting the money into the budget right now probably wouldn't have done a great deal. So we're giving them a chance to frame the program, get the program going so we can implement it in 2020.
And just so everybody knows, we work on the policy piece. The dollar piece will go to Senate Finance, but we work on the policy piece. Any questions on the amendment? Any questions on the amendment? I'll offer up amendment number 2735. 2735 is offered up. Is there any opposition? Amendment 2735 is adopted into the bill. We do have either questions or comments. Senator Luno?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my hope and prayer that you get this bill all the way through the process. I'd like to move favorable.
Thank you so much, sir.
So noted, Senator Boucher. We want to be so respectful of anybody that would want to testify. I think you've covered everything in the bill. Unless somebody feels compelled to testify, we have a motion to move HB 199 favorable. Is anybody that needs to testify? Okay, see, we all have done our work and we're all on the same page. We have.
We have, Senator, sorry, I believe we have one person who would like to come.
Why don't you come on up? I tell you what, why don't we just clean up our business? We all know what we're going to do, so we'll hear from you. But we have a motion to move HB 199, reported with amendments by Senator Luno. Any opposition? Seeing no opposition, it is reported with amendments.
Thank you, members.
Thank you all so much, and we'd love to hear what you have to say. Thank you for being here.
Yes, sir. We traveled over from Sunset, Louisiana, so I figured that I'd just share with you what we've gone through for us. I'm the mother of an amazing little girl named Peyton. Peyton was born in February of 2017 with an intraventricular bleed because her platelet count was between 10 to 17,000 at birth. Because of the effects of her congenital cytomegalovirus, she has sensorineural, profound hearing loss, and muscular instability. And it requires us a lot of avenues of therapy. To kind of go into numbers, we had 192 home visits last year of PT, OT, and ST. We've had 121 hospital visits to go to her different therapies. She's had 6 visits to Ochsner, New Orleans, 4 to Children's Hospital in New Orleans, and 2 overnight stays that led to 2 brainstem response tests to test her hearing to see if we qualified for cochlear implantation, which she did not. Because of all this is her life. She's 2 years old. We were removed from the Medicaid system in 2018 based on us cusping the income limit. I was given 2 options from the office, either quit my job or not claim my husband's income. Seeing as this was not an option, I went ahead and applied for Social Security, thinking maybe we could receive benefits that way and she would be put into the Medicaid system, but we were denied because she's not fully deaf. We currently have about $30,000 of credit card debt. We removed ourselves from New Iberia, Louisiana, an hour away to Sunset so we could receive early step services and the therapy that we needed for my daughter. And she incurred about $78,000 costs of medical needs, which doesn't include things that we've put her in to help her more, and a brace that we're actually waiting till we meet our deductible to pay for so she can walk a little more steadily. It would provide her some help because also our current insurance caps our policy. We're only allowed 60 visits of occupational and physical therapy, but only 30 visits of speech therapy a year, which isn't even 1 visit a week. My daughter's currently speaking, but it's only a couple words. Of course, as a parent, and y'all can all testify to this, you do whatever you can for your children, and you'll give them whatever you need, no matter if it's filing bankruptcy to do it. And I love my daughter, and I will, but I really would, and of course I see that we have y'all's support, and I really appreciate it.
You do, and for everybody here, this committee just cannot tell you enough how much we want to be side by side with you. I would say that every one of us get the constituent calls, every one of us try and do it, and this bill will help alleviate some of the frustrations. And thank you for having the courage to be here, and thank y'all all for having the courage to be here. We're in your corner. We really are, and we say this all the time. We all are one disaster away,
Correct.
a health disaster away from being in your same shoes. Senator Chabert?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As many of you in the yellow shirts know, both the chairman, Senator Claytor, and I served on finance last term, and that's when we got to know so many of you and the struggles that you walk. And I think that it's no coincidence that this term, when slots on this committee opened up, that folks like myself volunteered to take them. It's been my pleasure, as you know, my service is coming to an end, as is Senator Claytor's, but it's been my pleasure to fight on your behalf and stand by your side. You've heard my stories about my personal testimonies in my own family, but the one that the young woman just described not only hits me at home, it hits me in my legislative office, as my legislative assistant, Jeannie Ardoin, has a disabled child, and she struggles to get services every day for the exact same reasons that you described. And just because she works for me does give her no special privilege, and she struggles just like everyone else, and she has this paltry salary that all of our legislative assistants have, but her husband does have a job, and then they make enough to get by, you know, if they had everything going right. And then you put this in their lives, and it makes their walk that much harder. So I strongly encourage DHH, and particularly the human service districts, that I still scratch my head after a decade of service and wonder why they don't do a better job of doing their job. But that's another discussion for another term. But just know that it's been, again, my pleasure to try to better your life situation. We fail a lot, but sometimes we succeed. And hopefully the folks that come behind us will continue to help you along your struggle. Because those who have a life that's introduced with a disabled child, if they're blessed and lucky, they're going to have a disabled adolescent, and then a preteen, and then a teen, and then a young adult. And that walk doesn't get any easier.
Amen.
Thank you very much, Senator Chabert, and you've always been an advocate, and thank you very much. Senator Claytor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the event that this is my last meeting here in Health and Welfare, which seems like it would be, but we're picking up other bills, to the ladies and husbands and fathers that come down here wearing yellow and used to wear purple, I know that it's hard to lay in bed at night and go over all the things that have happened to you, and that you frequently feel very, very alone, and how will you make it through tomorrow. But you come here and you look around and you have other folks supporting you. I've really learned a lot through this process from you guys, and if this is it, I love you guys, and I appreciate your support here, and I'll continue to try to support you out there on the outside.
Thank you, Senator Clayton. This has been dear to you and your heart. I tell you, I see health and welfare is something. We see the same faces each week, and sometimes we're not on the same page. Sometimes we're all on the same page. But if anybody doesn't have a yellow, all the yellow shirt advocates, please stand up so we can all give you a big round of applause of what you mean to us. All right, this is kind of like the Star Spangled Banner. We're all agreeing, but now we get back to work, huh? Okay, y'all.
Oh, I'm sorry. Representative Horton, come on up. I was just calling, we just were trying to get to Senator Gaddy.
Thank you, sir. I was given different instructions. Thank you for letting me know that I need to come.
All right. So go ahead on your bill, which is the TEFRA bill, correct?
Yes, the TEFRA bill, and with the Department of Health and the governor's support, we came up to an agreement that it'll be implemented on or before June 1st, 2020, and it should not affect this year's budget. Do y'all want to come up with? We have people from the Department of Health here with us. So.
Okay, but we did adopt, at least in our amendments, essentially what you're discussing about limiting the program, putting a cap on it, I think, and making sure that we're targeting the right.
Yes, sir, because it's a very specific group of individuals that can qualify. They have
Okay.
to maintain their, they have to have insurance, and a Medicaid would be like a wraparound insurance for them because, and it's the only program that where someone's income cannot be used against them, and it's only for the child that is so severely disabled that they qualify to be institutionalized.
Okay, so there's a disregard of their income, but at the same time they have all these other conditions about that you just discussed.
Yes,
So.
sir.
All right, Senator Barrow.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So when you sat down, I think you said that it will go into effect June 1st, 2020, or July 1st?
June 1st.
Because that would still be in this fiscal year.
Well, I'll let the, July 1st? Okay, because it said June 1st is what it says. Yes.
Hello.
I'll let you explain the way it's done.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, committee. Mark Thomas, Deputy Secretary for the Louisiana Department of Health. She's correct. It's June 1st, but the expenditures would not come until July 1st.
Okay.
It'll take us a while to enroll folks into the program, and then in the next fiscal year, the expenditures would come about.
Sean Hotstream, Fiscal Office. There'd be a lag, that month lag in payment. So it would be implemented June. Your first payment would be July, which would be 2021.
Okay, so I'm assuming that you guys are able, or will have figured out a way of how to absorb and be able to pay those costs.
Yes, ma'am. And
So next budget cycle, the legislature would have to appropriate some level of funding based on some anticipated level of take-up for this population. Not in 20, but in 21. So as the budget goes through next year, you would appropriate some level of funding to take care of 21's cost.
So I guess we are looking at the anticipated, surplus we're supposed to have for next year, maybe. I'm just always very cautious, and I believe in the program. I wholeheartedly believe in the program. I'm just always very cautious about how funding and how LDH is expected to come up and have to pay for multiple things continuously when you really are sometimes constrained to what you can actually afford to do, and that's just my only concern. I mean, so I'm assuming between now and next year, you guys will have that figured out.
between now and next year, we're going to make a budget request to fund it in the upcoming fiscal year. Yes, ma'am. And we'll work with Representative Horton to do that.
And if my people want someone else to come instead of me, then Dustin Miller will continue to carry the torch. I mean, I just, I don't have an opponent yet, but I just want you to know that this is bipartisan in support, and Dustin and I've worked very hard, so we'll make sure it happens. It's the best of our ability.
No, I wholeheartly believe in it. I mean, I heard the testimonies of the individuals who came a week or so ago, maybe a week from today. But I'm just in terms of the department, in terms of the expectations of the department.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw the fiscal note, it is huge. But I mean, at the end of the day, it sounds like for every dollar that we may actually spend, we could actually save on the back end. But I mean, again, I just want to make sure that the department is comfortable with that. I know it doesn't affect this fiscal year, and that's just my specific question that I'm asking on the record.
Yes, ma'am. We believe this is a wonderful program. You're correct. It is an investment in these kids who would otherwise have to face the possibility of being institutionalized, and the cost to support them in this program is much more cost efficient than having them institutionalized. So we do have a commitment from the department to work with Representative Horton and to work on fiscally making this fiscally feasible in the next year.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
With no cost this year, and they're going to have to come back before this committee and appropriations next year, I move favorable.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Just to say that, when these folks were at the table, I think we all felt like that we needed to figure out some way to help them. I think the cost is a real cost. I would hope that that through the verification process that we now have in place for our Medicaid eligibility, that maybe we'd find offsetting cost, prior to next year as we come in your request. And I think that makes it a whole lot easier. So, they will be there. We know that some will be there. Whether it'll be enough or not, there's always additional cost. But I would just encourage you to look for those offsets, as you bring back your request next year.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
So on a motion by Senator White that we report favorably House Bill number 199, is there any objection to reporting House Bill 199 favorably? Hearing none, that bill is reported favorably.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.